Pete. Pete, it's me, the devil. Hey, devil. What's taking you so long? I've been expecting you. Well, you know how it is, Pete. I had to go through all the other members of your family first. No, I don't really get that, but you're the devil. You know what you're doing. That's right, Pete, I do. And I would think that after 100 shows, you would too. Gosh, devil, what's that supposed to mean? Seems kind of insulting. What I mean is, why haven't you had me on as a guest? After all, it's Halloween. It's kind of a big deal for me. Gosh, devil, didn't know you wanted to be on. Of course I do. Why do you think I keep showing up in everybody's heads? Well, I just figured that was a thing you do, showing up in people's heads. That is true, but in this case it meant that I wanted to be on the show. Well, somehow I've managed to download the audio imprints of all of your previous conversations with all of my family members, so I have a feeling this will be on the show. But if it makes you feel better, we are talking to a ghost hunter today. I guess I'll wait to see how it turns out before I come back and haunt your every move for the rest of your life. Until you let me on. Well, I guess anything can be negotiated. I think you used to be good at that sort of thing. Maybe you can grant me 3 wishes or whatever. But until then, I hope you have a great Halloween, devil. I imagine you give away nothing but the good candy down in hell. Nah, most people don't like to come trick-or-treating down here. We're kind of heavy on the tricks and light on the treats, if you know what I mean. Wow, I really feel for you. Well, in the meantime, here, have this Reese's. Oh, Reese's, my favorite. This is delicious. Thanks, Pete. No problem, devil. Now get thee behind me.
A shin show.
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 Good evening. Dr. Normal Humanson here to make ordinary desperate request for human blood bank donation. As you know, many humans are injured every day, whether through impalement, car accident, or exsanguination, and they need fresh, warm blood of every flavor. Type. Then they go to blood bank, but if it's empty, they are sad and dead. You can stop this by make a donation to Dr. Normal's Innocent Human Bank for Blood. Many blood bank make you tell them about embarrassing infectious disease or blood type. We know you value your privacy, and so do we. We ask no questions, and neither shall you. All that need transpire is for you to come to our location during our office hours, or by your invitation, we'll make a house call. After we have performed the ritual, you can consider your blood donated. Have your affairs in order. Bring 2 forms of identification. Office hours 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. So give your blood and quench my thirst. The life you save may be your own.
Hey, so welcome to A Shin Show. I'm your host, Pete Shin. Joining me, Elsie, Nick, and Sarah. Hello.
Hello.
You just heard Nick, and
Yeah.
hello.
We're going to interview right now Brenda Rumley, a ghost hunter from Oklahoma and Arkansas that Elsie met. Elsie, how did you meet Brenda?
At Tyndall Air Force Base, where I was trying to avoid meeting any other women because, military wives, they're the worst. But this lady kept trying to be my friend, and I would actually go out of my way to avoid her for a long time until finally she trapped me into going for a walk with her. And then I slipped a curse word, which I was very nervous about. And as soon as I did, she said, "Oh, thank God you're a real person." And ever since, we're like, fuck you, fuck this, fuck everything. We're terrible people together. And we became friends 2 months before we ended up moving away.
All right. Well, Brenda, obviously you're a terrible person. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Okay, well, hold on a second. Actually, I think I'm going to get my earphones. Okay, should sound better.
It sounds at least as good. So while I've got you on the line, the piece of audio that I grabbed, Brenda, was from the clip where somebody apparently said, "Be quiet."
Yeah, that's from the haunted prison, which was a little odd because it was a men's prison. We don't know why she was there, but we were making a lot of noise. We were actually in maximum security, and we were not getting anything, and we knew they couldn't hear us outside, so we started banging on the walls and being really loud. And then we get this, "Be quiet."
Well, yeah, and so this is it at normal volume right here.
To the speed thingy. Sorry, that's me.
Okay, let me see your flashlight then.
That's what it sounded like without any kind of enhancement whatsoever. And then I cleaned up the audio a little bit, and this is what it sounds like after I cleaned it up.
Do that speed thingy. That ch-ch-ch-ch-ch. Sorry, that's me.
Quiet. Okay, let me see your flashlight then.
So, I mean, there's not a lot of difference between those two sounds, but you can hear the be quiet portion a little more clearly on the second one.
Yeah.
And so my question, though, is what was that?
Well, we assumed it was a ghost that was irritated at our sound.
Well, and that's the question I have also is, were there any other sounds being made? I mean, it sounds like some woman whispered, be quiet.
Well, it was just George and I in the room. And see, that's one of our rules is you don't make funny noises. That's why George said that was me saying, because he knew afterwards he'd messed up. He'd made a funny noise. So he has to identify himself on audio, because once we go through there, we go home 2 or 3 days or a week later and go through our recordings. And later on, I might be excited about his and then I'd call him up and he might say it's me, or he may not remember. So that's one of our rules. If you stub your toe, if you knock against something, if you make a funny noise, don't sing unless you let us know ahead of time. Don't whisper when we're out. We don't go up to each other and go, hey, did you see that? We talk in a voice so we know it's each other's voice. If I'm going through recordings and I'm with the people that I know all the time, I can recognize a voice, but everybody's whisper sounds the same. So I can't tell the difference between my whisper or George's. That's why you hear us talking on there. It's not that we're trying to rile them up per se. I don't want to confuse us later on with a voice we might get.
So if it was only you and this gentleman in the room at the time, then clearly this woman's voice would either have to be you faking it or it's something else entirely.
Right. When I say we were in maximum security, that was an old Fort Chaffee, and that was where they took the prisoners that got off the Cuban boat during the Clinton crisis, and they let them off the boat. They rounded them all up, and they put like the worst of the worst at Fort Chaffee, and their living conditions were quite dastardly. And with that being maximum security, they had insulation inside that building. That building was pretty small. It only had like 2 or 3 rooms, and 2 of them were cages. And then they were lined with metal, because we made a lot of noise when we walked out and said, hey, did you guys hear us at all? And we're like, no. I said, pretty cool, because we were in there pounding on the walls trying to get a response.
So let's be clear. You did not hear that sound or that voice while you were there. That's something that the recording equipment picked up, but you and your partner did not hear that.
Exactly. Being humans, we can hear from, let's say, a range from here to here, but a recorder can pick up everything because that's what it's designed to do.
So, Brenda, if indeed that experience unfolded the way that you said at Fort Chaffee, something showed up on that recording that is not explicable. Is that true?
It's not explainable. That's true. And if you watched it again, did you see the disturbance and the light kind of walk in the room and walk out?
Yeah, I didn't get that. See, I'm oriented towards audio, so it makes sense that I wouldn't really be tuning into the visual. So I heard the audio, and that's the reason I pulled that particular clip out, is because it's something that I could identify. But some of the visual effects that I saw in some of your clips, obviously anything could be reproduced. So as a skeptic, it's a lot easier for me to ignore the visual evidence and focus on what I'm hearing.
That's true. When we're going through our stuff, I may think I see something, and I'll look at it over and over and over again. We were out at a cemetery somewhere with some people on the team, and I took a flash, and I about spit out my cereal. I thought, I swear to God, I think I saw a vampire in a long coat out there. I had a video camera set up, but I took a flash with my camera over to the side, and it was only on my video for like a second, maybe a second and a half, and I had to slow it down and go frame by frame to find it. and it was my teammate. I almost lost all my food over that one.
Well, that's comforting because you always got to be careful about Dr. Normal Humanson. Anyway, so I'm glad it wasn't a vampire.
Me too.
So, Brenda, how did you get involved in this kind of... It's not really work. You don't get paid for it, I imagine. How did you get involved in this vocation?
You're always interested in it. You don't just all of a sudden one day have something click on and say you're interested in it. I've just been interested in it even when I was a kid. My mother always raised me to have an open mind about things like that. And so I raised my boys to keep an open mind about that. And I've been ghost hunting with both. Those guys are great.
What is the scariest experience you've ever had while doing this kind of investigation?
Actually, it was probably my very first one that I went out on a real live ghost hunt, because for about 8 months to a year, George and I actually worked on what we needed to do to ghost hunt. We really did a lot of research before we started going out. So my first real live ghost hunt was a little place that my oldest son took me down to. It's called Kali Tukla, and it's a little bitty church in the middle of a graveyard. And we had a blast down there. It was just the two of us. And we had done pretty much all we were going to do. And I got 2 or 3 really good EVPs, but I didn't have a way of sending them to you because I didn't have them on video. But that wasn't the scary part. We were actually getting ready to leave. Mm-hmm. And my son, who I think is half Navy SEAL, is motioning to me. And I'm like, what? He said, I see 2 red eyes. And so I kind of had to look really hard. I wear glasses. And we squatted down and was kind of looking. And I just kind of freaked out a little bit because I don't want 2 red eyes looking at me. So I looked at my imaginary watch and said, look at that, how late it's getting. We should go. And so I got in the truck. And he stayed out there for 2 or 3 minutes, and he got in the truck, and he proceeded to torture me for 2 or 3 years over that. Now, first thing is I had a little talk with myself and said, look, if you're going to ghost hunt, you can't get scared at every little thing that comes along. I don't care if they've got red eyes or not. And after 2 or 3 years, he kind of confessed that while he stayed out there and he stood up, he said the red eyes stood up with him, and he said, oh, look at the time. So we left. I don't know what it was. I don't have it on film or camera. I don't know if it was aliens, Bigfoot, or some crack whore out there in the middle of nowhere.
Could be crack whore. Who knows?
Could be crack whore. You'd be surprised what you run into when you do outside investigations. We've run into possums, spiders. I think we were porched by a porcupine once. But I've not gotten scared after that.
Well, now, Brenda, as a result of your investigations, have you become more or less convinced of the existence of spirits after death, or ghosts, or however you want to describe it?
I have actually become more convinced, and that's why I like to get the voices on tape or get some visual evidence. That's really better, but it's so much harder to get it because we've got our window here that we can get a recorder. You can't record in 360. I'm afraid I can't afford those cameras.
I understand. So you're more convinced, and my question to you is, what does that say to you about what you believe happens after you die?
Well, I definitely believe in an afterlife. And honestly, I'm just going to touch very briefly on this. A lot of people go, well, don't you believe in God? And I'm like, well, yeah, I believe in him. Without him, there's no afterlife. Maybe my beliefs are a little unorthodox. And I believe that people or ghosts or spirits or whatever is wandering around have been either left behind or they didn't want to move on for various reasons. And I don't know that I've ever been actually touched or pushed or any of the fun things that you see people on TV getting done. I think they're a little over dramatic, but it does make my life more fun. But when we were at Fort Chaffee, what happened was I had a ghost blow on my neck. I was standing there looking out the window, and even my hair went like this.
There's no HR department to file a sexual harassment
assault
claim either, is there?
There just ain't nothing like having an old dead guy ghost flirt with you.
It's nice to feel attractive, isn't it?
It really, really is. That was like the highlight of my day. But that was pretty fun. I mean, I actually felt his breath. I'm thinking about it now.
At least you didn't have to smell it. I'd imagine old dead man breath has got to be pretty bad.
It didn't smell bad at all. I think that they must not have any smells like that afterwards. I don't know.
Well, that's a blessing for sure. Brenda, what are you doing for Halloween? Anything special? You going to go do any investigations on Halloween?
No, with the virus going on, everything's pretty closed up. We don't get around each other. Nobody lets us in. So it's going to be pretty boring. Usually we even go out and dress up bad and scare the kids in the neighborhood, but we're not even going to do that this year.
Yeah, I had forgotten about the impact of COVID-19 on paranormal investigators. I suppose it's pretty substantial.
It really is, because you want to keep social distancing. And then, like I said, people are not really very willing to let you in. And even home investigations, it's really just not even a good idea for them or us.
I just had a realization that I think maybe the scariest thing to run into at Halloween would be a Jehovah's Witness ghost. Do they still try to convert you after they've moved on?
We were investigating this lady's. She actually bought a big old building in a small town into a bed and breakfast, and she was in the process of renovating it. And she wanted us to come in and do an investigation. And we did. And we were packing up. And she had a little red house out there. And her red house girl, I don't know who she was walking up. And we said, "Hi, we're just leaving." And she kind of had this blank stare and said, "Oh, so you're the necromancers." And we're like, "Excuse me?"
I didn't know that was in my job description.
I said, "No, we just kind of did a little ghost hunt here." And she goes, "You're bringing up the dead." And Georgia's over there going, "Get in the car, get in the car, get in the car."
How do you pick what sites you're going to? And then what kind of research do you do beforehand? Or how do you decide where you're going to ghost hunt?
Well, in the beginning, we groveled a whole lot to people. "Please let us come. I swear to God, we'll be nice." And then after we kind of got a reputation in the website and everything, we did have people ask for home investigations. So I screened those pretty good, because some people are just nuts and they imagine all kinds of things.
Back to the whole ghost being easier thing.
There's only really two things that I'm afraid of, and that's people and the critters.
So you have to be pretty nocturnal to do this job, I would imagine. Do you pull all-nighters? Do you get in by 10 and are out by 1? What's it like to go do an investigation?
Well, there's not any particular schedule. If it's a home investigation, we go pretty much any time. We don't keep them up all night. I've never done an overnight investigation, although I've driven in so far away that I think I was driving home and got home at dawn, saw the sun come up. But most of the time, we'll just go for several hours. After 3 or 4 hours in a place, you're pretty done. These guys on TV, they have their producers or whoever go out and find these big, autonomous, huge places and contract for it. And they investigate pretty much all night long, and they smush it all into 40 minutes. And they don't get much more than what we do. They just get better places.
They have better production.
And some of the ghosts are kind of funny. When we were investigating this one haunted attraction, it's called the Asylum. We've been there a few times before. And they would always bring somebody in to sit at the nerve center. They had us on cameras and stuff to make sure everybody was okay. After I got through talking, I heard Brenda, which is me. And so I called them up to see if they said anything. And they're like, "No, we don't do that. You know that."
Now, this is something you heard yourself.
Well, I don't know that I heard it at the time, but I heard it on my recorder afterwards.
So the primary detection is through audio.
Is basically audio. That's where we get most of our best stuff. If I tell people, if you want to start ghost hunting, that's the first piece of thing you want to. You can get one for under $100, probably $50 to $100. And there's free programs online that you can download that helps you go through it. What I use is WavePad, which is pretty much made for music, but it's got excellent quality.
That's fascinating. So it turns out that your primary medium for detecting ghosts, audio, is the same primary medium we have for doing terrible things to one another, audio.
Exactly.
Maybe we should start a new podcast where you interview ghosts.
I would love it if they would talk back.
Yeah, so I didn't realize, I guess, from some of the shows I have seen, that you don't necessarily hear anything at the time. So I suppose that makes it seem a little less creepy when you're doing it.
You do get more chills when you're going through your stuff. And you spend a lot of time going through your stuff, because if we're in a place for 3 hours, each one of us have 3 hours of recording to go through. If I think I've heard something, then I will stop it and I'll go back and listen to it 10 or 15 times to make sure that either I have it or I toss it. Now I've just added several more minutes to that. And if I have a lot of activity, then I will stop it a whole lot and go through it. And then it goes again for the video.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun to a certain type of person, which, of course, you are that type of person.
It makes me a little bit of have dark humor.
That may be why you're one of the few people who actually listens to this show, Brenda, which I appreciate greatly, by the way.
Yeah, my husband and I will be driving along, and there's an old graveyard, an old cemetery along the side of the road. And I'd go, I'd hit that.
Better than saying that about a younger man.
Well, potentially. So, Brenda, where can people see more and hear more of the work that you and George have done?
Well, we do have a website, PSI of Tulsa, Paranormal and Spirit Investigators, but PSI was so much shorter, wasn't it? Apparently, it's also some sort of steel company. Who knew? And when you get on it, it'll say PSI of Northwest Arkansas and Tulsa, because we moved over just a little bit. And so we kind of cover both areas now.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, anytime you guys want to talk about this or that, I got all kinds of ideas about stuff that's unproven.
Perfect. Same here.
I appreciate you having me do this.
Well, it's our pleasure.
Thanks for coming.
And
Thanks for entertaining us.
Let me know if you hear any voices, Peter.
Besides the ones in your head, Dad.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, wait. How would he know then?
Thanks again. Great to talk to you, and thanks for being on.
I had fun. Thank you very much.
Gosh, Bill, that sure was a swell 50th birthday party, and now I guess you are probably in a hurry to get your medically recommended colonoscopy for men your age.
Well, I hadn't really thought too much about it.
And I know the perfect place to get it done. It's Alien Colonoscopy. You can get Alien Colonoscopy in any local farm field between midnight and 2 a.m., and it does not cost a thing. Just show up in a hospital gown or loose-fitting clothing, lay face down, and spread them cheeks. When you feel the warm light on your back, it is already underway. Just a few intense hours later, you're back in your bed completely nude and scrape-free of any alien lubricants. Results will be beamed to your puny human brain immediately after you awake by Zoloft the Immaculate, sovereign of all carbon-based life forms in this quadrant.
I'm not going to a cornfield in a hospital gown. And why are you talking like that?
Great, so I'll pencil you in for 2 a.m. and I'll make sure to let them know to abduct you straight from your home. You will not regret this, Bill.
What? No, hey, don't tell anyone to come to my house. Do I even know you?
See you tonight, Billy. Alien Colonoscopy. Submit your anus to Zoloft.
There's a lot of tension in the air.
No tension.
Maybe there's ghosts hounding people.
No, there's no fucking tension. He yelled tensely.
Right.
So you heard that interview with Brenda. What did you think?
She seemed like a nice lady.
Yeah. I mean, she seems very earnest about what she does.
So I'm getting that you all are not particularly impressed.
I just didn't have it in me to rip her to 1,000 pieces.
Thank you for not ripping her to shreds. She is a nice lady, and she evidently enjoys what she's doing.
I mean,
Yeah.
She said that she gets most of her evidence through audio, which is why I asked, why is it that electromagnetic fields, what proof is there to constitute that an electromagnetic field or a surplus thereof means there's a ghost?
Well, because what are ghosts? Ghosts are,
Not real.
If they
depending
are,
on what your beliefs are, ghosts are excess energy, right? That's all like what a soul is or whatever.
yeah.
So the extra or excess electromagnetic field could be evidence that points toward, a spirit.
It could also be used in debunking.
Because what's sound but frequency?
Right. And frequency does impact your body.
Your hot body.
Yeah, cool.
Here's the thing is that you can't argue with somebody who clearly values what they do. What are you going to do? Shit on their parade?
What am I gonna just convince her all of a sudden that ghosts aren't real? But
Ghosts aren't real and what
I
you're doing
mean-
is dumb. She gets enough of that in her day to day.
yeah, so if you do believe in God, does it mention in the Bible anything about ghosts?
Yeah.
In the word of Jesus Christ, your Lord and Savior?
A few times ghosts are mentioned here and there in the Bible.
Like aside from the Holy Spirit?
I forget what it is. You're not supposed to convene with unfamiliar spirits or something like that.
Yeah, there's a few ghost mentions in the Bible, but they don't
So
make a
does-
big thing out of it.
Does it say like what the criteria are for becoming a ghost?
No, it's not listed as here's the steps to become a ghost in the Bible. No,
Because
that's
in the
not a
Bible,
thing.
it kind of seems like you're either going to heaven or you're going to hell.
Yeah, there's some gray areas even in the Bible.
Okay, well, I wouldn't know.
Which I would say which you would know if you went to Bible school, but you didn't.
Yeah.
So,
You went to Bible school, you just didn't pay attention.
Dad,
I
you
maybe
ruined the
went
bit.
like twice. They weren't fond of me in churches.
We know
It's
this.
because you weren't quiet. You were too destructive.
Yeah.
You
I was.
embodied the spirit of Satan too well.
He
You
spoke through me.
good for both of you.
I was his instrument of chaos and death.
Why'd you lump me in there? Good for both of us. What?
You were also an instrument of chaos and death.
I was?
Yes.
No, I was a perfectly complacent child.
Compliant, you mean?
Sure.
You weren't.
I've heard stories of you being an agent of chaos and pain for your younger brother.
Well, that's different. Turnabout is fair play.
Well, in any event, it was nice of Brenda to join us on Halloween, and I hope she has a nice spoopy season for sure.
Yeah.
In the meantime, speaking of things that will live forever, one thing that will live forever is the glory of Khabib Nurmagomedov. God damn it. I practiced his name several times.
I don't even want to, FC, and I've got Nurmagomedov down.
Nurmagomedov. How about that Khabib Nurmagomedov, 29-0, and now a retired, undefeated lightweight UFC champion?
Yeah, man. It was going bad. Nick, did you actually watch it?
No.
I have it recorded upstairs for you. Totally legally, by the way, FBI.
Of course.
But that fight was not going in his favor until it was. So I thought that was really interesting. It was a pretty good fight. And he said that he retired to spend more time with his mom because, his dad died of COVID and his mom wrung a promise out of him that he would stop fighting and you got to listen to your mommies. So I thought that was a heartfelt speech for the champ. But it did also make me laugh because then the match that they just did, Gaethje is still the interim champion.
Because Khabib retired.
Yeah.
What a hollow victory.
Well, is it though?
I mean,
It's
I
a
wish-
hollow defeat for Gaethje, I feel like.
Yeah, it's a hollow interim belt, but I wish that, wouldn't you just want to round it out to 30? 29 undefeated fights. Like, come on, just round it out to 30, nice even number, and make it against Tony Ferguson. Please, God. Now that it's just struck from the betting table, it's gone forever. A lot of people are very sad about that, myself included.
Isn't Ferguson one? Isn't he first? Doesn't it go Gaethje then Ferguson?
Well, it doesn't matter. Khabib retired. They're not fighting ever again.
I know, but why would Ferguson fight him anyway?
Because that fight has been scheduled 5 separate times. The people have wanted to see that fight. It was going to go down. It was set in stone. Nobody was going to get injured. Nobody was going to fuck up. And then guess what? God strikes the earth with a plague and it puts the fight off yet again. And now here we are. The fight never fucking happened. It's insane. So many people, myself included, just wanted to see what would happen when those two fought. Please, just one time. 5 separate times. Each time the fight was scheduled, someone fucked up. Someone got their knee torn in half. Someone got this surgery, this injury, that injury, and then a plague.
Well, maybe after Habib's mom dies, he'll come back.
But then it won't, they won't be in the prime. That's
During-
the thing about
yeah,
fighters.
during
It's
the-
like there's a certain time this shit has to happen.
Yeah.
And it didn't. And now it won't.
Now
It
that's
will forever be a what if.
Here's the world's smallest violin. I'm playing it for you.
I'm not the only one upset about that. It's a huge
No, I know.
need.
It would have been a good matchup.
It would have been an insane matchup. Or maybe not. I don't know. We'll never know now.
And that's the point. Well, I'm sorry that Khabib will never get the opportunity to fight Ferguson by virtue of his own retirement, certainly. But you got to take your hats off to him. 29-0 is an unbelievable accomplishment in MMA.
Yeah.
Is it true that Khabib is the only undefeated UFC champion?
Wasn't Mighty Mouse undefeated?
No. Henry Cejudo took his belt from him in a very,
Oh, yeah.
very,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
very questionable decision loss.
Looks
Aside
like
from that, though, yeah, Mighty Mouse was undefeated. He had defended his belt for 11 years.
Okay, so maybe.
we'll have our research people look into it. In the meantime, have you two been watching or reading anything of interest?
I started watching Schitt's Creek, which is pretty funny.
I watched one episode of that. It was only moderately entertaining. I guess it got better, but I couldn't
Yeah.
make it past one episode. So sorry.
Well, they're 15, 20 minutes, so it's really easy just to throw it on and go about your business. But there's some good scenes in there, enough that I've watched at least half of the first season.
Okay, Schitt's Creek, recommended by Sarah. How about you, Nick?
I've just been listening to more Dan Carlin.
Oh, yeah, that's right. What are you listening to now?
The Wrath of the Khans.
And the cons are, of course, Genghis Khan.
Yeah, he was the big one. One of the big ones. There's a lot of big ones.
Is Khan a title?
Yes. Genghis was a title, too. His real name was Temujin.
Yeah, so Genghis Khan, I want to call him Kong, like King Kong. But he's
Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan, not Genghis Kong. That would be King
That's a
Not
dog
Genghis, not Genghis Kong.
Gangrene Kong, I'm pretty sure, is a disease, and a racist one at that.
No, not Gangrene Kong.
A racist disease.
In any event, Genghis Khan, a bad man.
Was he, though?
Well,
Now we're getting into it.
that's a matter for debate, isn't it? Upwards of 50 million people died directly because of him. And 0.16% of the entire population of Earth is related to Genghis Khan to this day because of the amount of rape. This isn't really a new thing to Genghis Khan or exclusive to him, or he wasn't the first one to do it, but no one had ever, before or since, done it on the scale and in the time that he did. How the Persian Empire is likened to the blob from the 1950s movie that just slowly expanded outward, absorbing everything in its path. The Mongol Empire was more like a snake. It was just a really fast snake through the grass. It could not be contended with. There was huge amounts of overinflation of the Mongol numbers because they appeared to be everywhere at once, when really they just had mobility completely unseen in the recorded world.
Well, you got to appreciate a guy that kills that many people also going out of his way to repopulate. That's just good management.
He repopulated all right. Plenty. So that's the bad things, was the wanton murder and destruction. But as hard as he was on other people, the whole carrot and stick thing, hey, give up now or we'll be back tomorrow. As hard as he was as hard or harder on his own people. The Mongolian troops themselves had orders that were carried out with absolutely draconian sanctions. For example, each unit, and a lot of people try to credit Genghis Khan to this structure of units, which he didn't invent it, but every unit was 10. And then you had a unit of 100 and then a unit of 1,000. So if your unit of 10, if one of you got captured, the rest of the unit would be put to death if you did not go rescue him. If your unit is fighting and 2 or 3 run away, the entire unit is put to death. Likewise, if 9 or 7 of you run away and the rest don't, the ones who didn't run away are put to death. So unless you retreat in a giant body or don't retreat at all, everyone is put to death.
You're telling me that they were the definition of ride or die.
Yes. And if one of your unit ran screaming into battle, the rest of you would also be put to death if you did not follow him. So this put in place a level of discipline that, again, had never been seen before in the world.
I'm also going to say here, I did not know that it was Genghis Khan. I thought it was Genghis Khan.
Yeah, that's the common misconception. I actually remember in college, my world history professor making like a whole fucking big deal. It's Genghis. It's not Genghis. But everyone says Genghis. You know who Genghis Khan is. When you say Genghis Khan, sometimes people think you're talking about somebody else.
Or
Yeah.
perhaps a popular stacking game from Milton Bradley.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But
I thought that was funny.
I did too.
I
I've
don't
been
get it.
wanting to say it.
It's a
Jenga?
Yeah,
Yeah.
You're fucking kidding me. Okay.
Jenga Khan. You move that one piece of wood wrong and Jenga comes down on you with a whole pile of death and rape.
Right. He's got a lot
Yeah.
of wood.
Get it? Because wood stands for penis and because he raped everyone.
Yeah, so that threw me off. What were
It was the 10 number thing. Isn't that a Roman thing?
Yeah, Romans did do that. That's where the term decimation comes from. And a lot of people use decimation wrong. For anyone who doesn't know, decimation is when you would, if your legion fucked up, you would draw lots, and whoever got the short stick had to be killed by the rest of your unit. 1 man out of every 10 was killed by your brothers in arms. Another thing Genghis Khan did, one of the many reasons that made him just the best strategist possibly of the entire human race, was that he was only interested in meritocracy. You know, like if you're a general in Rome, your son's probably going to be a general. If you're royalty in England back in that time, your kids were going to be royalty. They were going to be taking over your job when you died. Genghis Khan did not give a fuck who your dad was. If you showed prowess in the battlefield, you would be rewarded extremely. You would be promoted, get all the gold, all the riches.
It's the American dream, only real, right?
Yeah. And the flip side of that coin is failure was absolutely not tolerated. If you failed, you would be put to death, you and all of your people. But if you succeeded, you were rewarded intensely. Genghis Khan was a guy who believed in a meritocracy, which made his army that much more effective. Dan Carlin says that if we made a list of the top 10 best strategists ever to have lived in any time period, Genghis Khan is on the list, and 2 of his generals are also on the list. So you could take 3 people out of this top 10 of all time, and they're in the same fucking army in the same time.
So you said that Genghis Khan was one of the best strategists. How does Sun Tzu fit into all of that? Because, everyone talks about Sun Tzu's Art of War.
Sun Tzu is an early Chinese warrior philosopher whose aphorisms continue to hold a lot of value in terms of military strategy and military thought. And he was alive before China was even unified. So we're talking a couple of millennium ago, not at the time of Genghis Khan.
When the fuck was Genghis Khan?
1200. About 1214 is when he rose to power.
So Sun Tzu would have been way before.
Yeah, way before.
But Sun Tzu may have been a composite. Sun Tzu may have been a compendium of widely known military concepts in the early Chinese Empire.
Those Chinese military concepts, widely known as they may have been or not, did absolutely nothing in the face of the Mongolian horde. So, to answer your question, Mongolia conquered China. They conquered it good in a way that had never been seen before. So, if they were listening to Sun Tzu's teachings or not, it didn't really do them much good in the face of Genghis Khan. They say that the Mongolian bows that they used were 160-pound bows. They could allegedly fire 12 arrows a minute. So you got to imagine how fucking strong these motherfuckers were, just pulling back 160 pounds.
Biceps the size of my head.
Right. And they knew they had a technique firing on the back of a horse that in the moment in a horse's gallop, when all 4 hooves are off the ground, that's when they loose the arrow. So their aim is not affected in any way by galloping on a horse.
How fast does the horse have to be galloping if you can fire an arrow 12 times in a minute while all 4 hooves are in the air? I want to see that word problem in my math class.
Probably as fast as it fucking can, I would imagine. But this legendary Mongolian general, his name was Subadai. He was like on the top 10 list of best strategists of all time. The Mongolians and the Chinese both were just better strategists than anyone in the Near East or the Middle East, Europe. They just didn't have the military strategy that the Mongols and the Chinese had. So when Genghis Khan conquered the Chinese, he was used to dealing with their strategy, with their military prowess, of which it was considerable. They took over the northern part of China, which was the Jin dynasty at the time, which was a different steppe people, because Mongolians, it would be like if one guy in the Native American tribe, Crazy Horse, just took over all Native American tribes into one thing and just called it that one thing.
That's a good analogy.
Thank you. And your praise has thrown me off.
I know it's weird.
This never happens.
Yeah, well, so this Jin dynasty was these different steppe people that maybe could have been absorbed into the Mongolian tribe if they hadn't already conquered that part of China, but they'd gone native. They had lived in all this wealth and opulence after taking over this Chinese state that they lost their edge. And this is a common problem in Mongolian societies that conquer other places in China. After a few generations, they're just not.
Because you conquer to have the soft life, and then you have the soft life and you get conquered.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about America, doesn't it?
No, not really.
Yeah.
I like my softness.
I'm just saying there's a pattern here that we are falling into.
I have a question.
What?
You know that rich people in America are only rich because their parents were rich?
Yes.
Where did Genghis Khan get his military stuff? Was it from his dad?
No, he was just a small town equivalent.
He was just a townie, huh?
He was just actually an orphan. I don't think his parents were known. Anything we know about his upcoming has been heavily influenced by him.
It makes you wonder, right? Like, where the fuck did this guy come from?
Yeah, it is. And we don't know how he died exactly or where he's buried. People are still looking to this day where Genghis Khan's tomb is. Can't find it. Or really like exactly how he died or even really what he looked like. There's some accounts that say he had green eyes and red hair, which is not an uncommon feature amongst Mongolian people. But that's neither here nor there. He was just some poor dude, but he was ruthless. and he got to be the head of his tribe. And then he started slowly assimilating other tribes until he had a considerable force.
Well, if you say you're a nobody, but you have this military strategy in place, that takes some learning, or you think it would.
It does take learning, and he got that learning through the absorption of other steppe tribes. And his number one general, Subadai, as I was saying earlier, was called the Arrow because he was known for shooting Genghis Khan's horse out from underneath him during a battle. He was like some vicious warlord of a different group of steppe tribes. And Genghis Khan, after completely annihilating his forces, came to him and was like, all right, buddy, either you're up next to get your head chopped off, or I kind of like your stuff. You could be my general.
That was good work you did out there.
And Subadai did become his general and actually lived quite a bit longer than Genghis Khan himself. He served Genghis Khan's, I keep using his names interchangeably. He served his son in the next great Khan of the Mongol Emperor Ogadai.
One last question, and then I'll let this topic die. How old was Genghis Khan during his, let's say, the peak of his empire?
Probably like 30 or 40.
Fuck.
Yeah, you just didn't really live to be that long back then. He would probably died around his 50s or 60s.
That's just crazy. That's a crazy amount of conquering.
His whole life. And the amount of conquering that he did, the majority of the expansion of his empire was done in 3 years.
He got busy.
That's what I'm saying. No one has done what he did to the scale he did, how quickly he did, because people just couldn't fucking deal with these Mongols. It takes a long time for you to get an army in place, get your supply lines all figured out, get your artillery in place. Mongols don't have to worry about any of that.
They're already nomadic.
Yeah.
The template they had to start with was geared toward warfare.
Yeah. And so if you have a force of, let's do it pessimistic and say 50,000 men on horseback, each pulling 160-pound bows, the way they trained their troops was by having these great hunts. All these men would go on these hunts. They were really good at herding animals and then trapping them and using that momentum to kill them. They used these same techniques on men. They hunted them like beasts. And there are claims that they were absolutely mechanical in their ability to kill people. They would just get you real quick, and you can't pin them down because they're on fucking horses. And horses were the technology of the time. If you wanted to travel anywhere from anywhere, no matter where you lived, you could only get there as fast as a horse could get there. That was like the cutting edge technology, was horses. And so what Mongolians did was they just mastered that technology beyond what anybody else had ever even attempted. Much like the Persians before them, as soon as you were able to walk in Mongolia, you were put on a horse and given a bow. There's also rumors that a Mongolian woman could not take a husband until she had killed another man in battle.
Nice. It sounds a lot like what George R.R. Martin modeled his Dothraki off of.
Yes, that's true. That's very true, as a matter of fact. Bottom line is, it sounds like another fascinating account of a brutal dictator from this time, not ancient times, but times within the recorded history of man.
Yeah, and what, 600 years ago?
800, yeah.
About 800 years ago. Not that long ago. But I'm circling way back. The way that people say that he's a good man is because of his religious tolerance, which he used as a weapon, by the way. It wasn't like he was some altruistic.
Everybody has an ulterior motive, yes.
3 things: his religious tolerance and his letting people survive, both of which were used as weapons against others. He would use surrendered civilians as human motes, as cannon fodder all the time. Yeah. His insane network of spies that to this day may still be the best spy agency that has ever existed. He used his spies to find out when exactly the worst fucking time a Mongol horde to show up outside of town would be, and that's when he'd show up.
Smart.
And
what, like they sat on the city councils?
Maybe he would just send Mongolians, whatever, somebody unassuming, I'm sure, to just go to cities and just figure out like what's wrong. What is dividing the people? When do they get their food? When do they not get their food?
When's the fall harvest?
When is the worst time for us to show up? That's when we're showing up.
When's the farmer's market?
When's the presidential election?
When is power changing hands? That's a good time for Mongolians to show up.
We'd better watch our shit. That's all I have to say.
Right.
So what did I say? Religious tolerance, his network of spies, and trade. The Silk Road was made by Genghis Khan. He brought globalization loosely, because obviously there was other continents that weren't getting got to, but he brought trade on a scale that had never been seen before.
This has been Genghis Khan.
A life.
I know that you shared all this with us because you are actually going as Genghis Khan for Halloween.
I'm not. I wouldn't know how. No one knows what the fuck he looks like.
Doesn't that mean that you could then go?
I guess. which means I don't have to wear a costume at all.
Rent a
I can
horse.
just say, I'm Genghis Khan. And they'd be like, what? And I'd be like, yeah, he looked just like I do.
Rent a horse, get a bow, you're good to go.
And then I'd say, find a proof that he didn't look like how I do, and they wouldn't be able to do it.
That's
Yeah.
true. Wow, that's exciting. Well, Genghis Khan for president.
Last thing I'll say, there's a lot of people who got fucked who thought that they knew what the Mongols were. There were steppe people that were a buffer between people's kingdoms and the Mongols. And they would say, oh, these people are easy to conquer. Let's conquer them. And then you just tore down the wall between you and the Mongols. And then you get fucked by the Mongols.
That's pretty entertaining.
Yeah, so
well,
be careful.
not for them.
I will say one last thing, which is you mentioned, hey, is there any correlation between softness and America? In other words, have we lost our toughness? That's what you were getting at.
Well, yeah.
This is why I maintain good relationships with the people in the family who know how to do things like make electricity happen and hunt and kill things and skin them and eat them. Because in the event of the apocalypse, I want to be surrounded by people who know how to do shit.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be the apocalypse. I bet there was a few kingdoms who, when the Mongol horde was coming down upon them, they thought that this was the apocalypse. And it wasn't necessarily the apocalypse, but it was the end of all things for them.
That they knew. Yes,
Yeah.
the end of life as they knew it.
Yeah, and it would have been nice for them to, well, there was just nothing you could do against the Mongols. If you didn't surrender to them right away, and even sometimes if you did, you were dead meat. I said trade. The third thing was terrorism. That was the thing that they used.
That's like thing number 5, but I'll let you have it.
Spies and terrorism and religious freedom in civilians as a weapon, because he would do such atrocious things to some of these cities because they didn't surrender, or even if they did, or God forbid if they betrayed him, that other people, they would hear what happens and they would just give up, which is what he wanted, to take a city without any bloodshed.
To
That'd
let
be
your
preferable.
reputation speak for you.
Which is, I think, arguably terrorism. You're using the fear of what you have done to other people as leverage to get what you want.
So I'm finally overcoming my shock enough to mention, I thought you loved me, but now I find out you're with me for my gardening skills.
Post-apocalyptic gardening skills, most specifically.
Jesus
Grown
Christ.
cucumbers in irradiated soil.
It's so important to survival. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm scared of it.
Halloween is right around the corner, and nothing is spookier than the McRib. Many prosecutors have asked us, just what exactly is a McRib, and why is it so darn delicious? Well, our legally approved answer is that it's a piece of foodstuff whose Halloween costume is a small rack of boneless ribs, no part of which has ever been alive. Is your vegetarian or vegan lifestyle getting in the way of you enjoying this delicious abomination? No, it's not, because this year's McRib, along with every other year as well, contains everything but meat. Now, what exactly that entails is our little secret family recipe, but rest assured, it sure is scary. The McRib, now available in Halloween orange, putrid purple, and ghoulish green. So come on down to McDonald's and get yourself the spookiest food there is.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm scared of it. So what we've been watching over here is The Boys, which is on Amazon Prime.
I've heard about that.
You've heard about it? Well, whatever you've heard about it,
Do you have Amazon Prime?
Yes.
Can I get that? I know you've sent it to me before.
Yes.
it's important that you send that to Nick so that he can get that so he can watch The Boys. You both need to watch it immediately, if not sooner, and you will be entertained, I guarantee it.
It is some dark shit. It makes fun of everything, and I love it.
Yes.
The boys are back in town.
What it makes fun of specifically is corporate America, American exceptionalism, religion in particular, superhero culture, Me Too culture, anything that you can think of that has been a theme in American life over the past 2-3 years, you're going to find it made fun of on The Boys in the most brutal and graphic way possible. I will say I've never seen a TV show where somebody literally had their face peeled off on camera.
Yeah, it was intense.
I don't think I have either.
Well, there you go. You need to see it.
But it attacks even subtle things, like they have a character that plays on feminazism. They make fun of the fact that we're very into LGBTQ, but we're really mostly just into L, and the others we don't really care about. There's a lot to it.
There's a lot of social commentary is what you're saying.
Faux show.
But it's not right in your face. It's just really well done. And the acting is terrific. The writing is terrific. The VFX are terrific. Strongly recommend 5 of 5 stars, The Boys.
5 out of 5 stars, really?
No shit, man. You'll like it.
And no kidding,
Okay.
I almost gave up after the first episode because it's pretty intense. They don't shy away from anything, and it was a little bit too much. but I embraced it, got through a second episode, and was like, okay, I just got to put my big girl pants on because this is going to be real dark.
Sarah, you pointed something out on a notepad. Was that like your username and password for Amazon Prime?
It was the watch list. I put The Boys on it.
Oh, I see. That's quite a watch list. In fact, that's about 100 programs that you have written down there.
Yeah, do you want me to go through it real quick?
Sure, the top 10.
I'll do 10 of the ones I haven't watched yet, which is Shameless, Westworld, Killing Eve, Castlevania Season 2, Fleabag, Vikings, Dairy Girls, Ozark, Power.
Ozark, I know that one. Power Rangers? Powerpuff Girls?
I don't know.
Just
It's
Power.
probably something on Netflix. Who knows?
You know what I want? The 3rd season of One Punch Man. One Punch!
What Patch?
I didn't know there was a second season.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
It's great.
You gotta watch it.
It's fucking great.
Maybe I'll rewatch that. I'm in the middle of the slog that is My Hero Academia. So I
Okay.
like it. It's just like most animes, they take
Sometimes they
fucking
add some
10
filler.
episodes to go through one battle. And then the first 5 minutes of a 20-minute episode is recapping the last episode. I don't care.
I skip right through that. Sometimes they have an entire episode that's a recap.
Like, why?
But because
Why?
they're trying to buy time.
Well, that's shitty planning and shitty animation. And I hate when animes do that.
Well, I think the studios that make those things are worked nearly like slaves, and it's just ultimate crunch time at all times.
Well, then why would I want to support that?
Because it's good.
Is it though?
Because it's good. Well, I mean, they're going to make it either way. It's going to get
Yeah.
made. It's getting supported.
Whatever.
Might as
So
well
I'm in the middle of that.
Join
slog.
the brotherhood of man.
So
Go
what-
and say to yourself, buy the furniture. That's how it goes, right?
Something like that.
What the fuck? I have no idea.
No, yeah, that was weird.
And I have no idea what anime you're talking about, Sarah.
My Hero Academia, it's about the society has developed mutations basically called quirks, and it's about becoming heroes and villains accordingly.
80% of the human population is born with a quirk.
Japanese X-Men without the LGBT undertones.
I see.
Yes. And the guy, All Might, the number one undisputed champion hero of the world, All Might, is this dude in red, white, and blue armor. He's got blonde hair, blue eyes. All his attacks are named after cities in America. Detroit smash, 4 states, Delaware smash, Texas smash.
Right, but this is a Japanese anime.
I think Japanese anime is redundant.
That's true. This is an anime.
Yeah.
Speaking of anime, Animaniacs is coming back. I'm very excited about it. I realize that that's a generational thing that you're too old for and you guys are too young for, but fuck yes, I am into it.
With the original voice actors.
Yeah.
You're right. I don't give a shit, and clearly Nick and Sarah don't give a shit. So,
Well, what is it?
You know Animaniacs.
Nope.
This is the Animaniac or whatever.
And we're
No.
I don't remember how
to the max. So
Yeah.
just sit back and relax. Anyway, Animaniacs is the logical progression of Warner Brothers Studios, and it was Looney Tunes, but for the 90s.
Oh, wait, did they have powers and shit?
No,
No,
but
they were tunes.
you're probably familiar with Pinky and the Brain. Pinky and the Brain originated from Animaniacs.
Okay.
So Animaniacs, within a half an hour episode, there would be 3 sub-cartoons, but in between the cartoons, the 3 primary characters would have whatever kind of ridiculous thing they were going to do. It's pure entertainment. They're coming
Vaguely.
back on Hulu. So we need your Hulu login, Sarah. That's the point.
You're
We
going to have
do.
to fight the other 12 people to the death for it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Your dad's got nothing else to do but beat people up.
actually, I'll trade you a Hulu login for a YouTube TV login.
Look at this. American capitalism at work.
At its
Free market.
bartership at its finest.
So it's a deal?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I want to watch the rest of Fargo. I watched the first episode
Look-
of the first
Oh,
season
yeah,
of Fargo, and I was blown away by that.
All I request is that you make your own profile.
Fair.
Cool.
Can do.
Yeah,
Easy.
you got to watch the rest of Fargo. Billy Bob Thornton is a goddamn class act. Glenn Howerton also. I mean, it's just cool to see him not as Dennis.
Right.
I was going to say, I didn't know he was in it. All right. I'm impressed.
He
now.
is.
We need to get that login because that's what Elsie and I need to finish watching next is season 1 of Fargo.
Well, I would have to
Fargo
start.
is also added on the list now.
Would recommend. It's got Martin Freeman in it.
I like Martin Freeman. He's kind of an asshole, though.
Is he?
Yeah.
In real life?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, what
He's
does he
just
do?
kind of a jerk.
You
Just-
say
that's
that
his
like something
personality.
happened and you know of a specific
No,
example.
like in all of his interviews and all of his cast and fan interactions, he's just kind of a dick.
Well, he might have little man syndrome.
Well, I mean, he is like 5 foot tall, so
Exactly.
Yet still taller than Tom Cruise.
yeah, no shit. Well, you know, I was really, 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 really into Sherlock for a long time, in which he plays John Watson. So I followed his celebrity news and all that kind of shit.
And he was a dick.
A little bit. He's just standoffish.
Some Brits are like that.
Maybe he's
Standoffish,
painfully introverted.
shall we say?
No, I don't think so. I think he's just kind of a dick.
Standoffish is a big, big word that means tough but fair.
A stiff upper lip.
He's an asshole. Okay, got it. Well, in any event, he plays, I'm not going to do any spoilers, but he plays kind of a milquetoast character driven to a level of madness, if you will, at least in the first episode of Fargo.
By his own inadequacies. He does a great Northern American accent for being a Brit.
But on the other hand,
Better than Benedict Cumberbatch.
I do a terrific British accent.
No, you don't.
That was not good.
I just did it. It was great.
Okay, sure,
It
Trump.
was huge.
Yeah. We all believe you.
Did you know Uncle Scott has COVID?
No.
That's a thing. So the Halloween thing's canceled.
Oh, thank God. Thank fucking God.
Wow.
Grandma wanted to do a Halloween thing, and I wasn't going to attend, and Nick's not going to.
I was going to because my family thinks that I have some sort of fucking conspiracy where I'm avoiding them. And it's like, hey, don't want you to die. Grandma's 70 years old, has diabetes, and has had cancer. Don't want to get her sick. And plus, I get this like vibe that part of the family doesn't believe COVID is real.
They don't.
Yeah, which is fucking stupid. Hey,
Well, not all of them, because Scott and Carrie are actually pretty liberal Democrats.
there should be no political leanings towards a goddamn disease. It's
Right?
a disease. It
But
doesn't
when-
care whether you're a Democrat
No.
or a Republican.
But when
Amen.
your medical professionals and all of that are politicized, what do you expect?
I guess, like,
Trump literally said, if Biden is elected, he will listen to the scientists.
that
I
has
know, right?
absolutely no bearing on an individual's intelligence.
Are you sure?
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't. It should.
shouldn't,
And look, this
but it
is, I've been
does.
wanting to talk about this. Dad, when you were in town, we had this big conversation where you guys were trying to defend the intelligence of the American people. And I don't know why. You were trying to say, like, no, people aren't stupid. They're just like emotionally stunted. And yet Donald Trump can get on TV and say, inject bleach into your fucking veins, it'll cure coronavirus. And thousands of people will do it. American people are so fucking stupid. And this is part of that whole softness thing that I'm talking about. When an empire has been in power for as long as we have, and people enjoy the kind of creature comforts that we take as a given, like we are entitled to have clean water and wine whenever we want it and shit. You get soft, and when you get soft, you get stupid. People are so stupid right now. I just wish my family believed in COVID. That's all. I figured they were smarter than me when I was younger, and like now I'm getting older, and it's like, you're dumb, you know?
That's a normal progression of most lives.
What I would say
Yeah.
is that there are things called cognitive biases, and we suffer from several cognitive biases. The most significant one being confirmation bias, in which we favor things that confirm our existing beliefs. And so when we're challenged by information that doesn't conform to our existing beliefs, oftentimes we'll simply say, well, that's fake news. And that's a problem, not just for Republicans or Democrats, that's a problem for every human being.
Yeah, okay, but like once you're aware of what confirmation bias is, does that not, if you have a single goddamn lick of sense in your head, help you to understand when you are enacting
That-
confirmation
right.
bias? I just don't understand how people can't understand when they're being lied to. Don't you get that no one's telling you the truth?
No, because there's a presumption that at least some people are telling you the truth. We actually are hardwired to trust other people. And so, no, most people have an inherent sense of trust in other people, particularly people who are telling them things that they want to hear.
Or people in power.
But not educated people? I trust people who are educated. I am willing to trust a doctor. So when a doctor says, hey, there's a disease going around that's super highly infectious and may or may not kill you, we really don't know what the criteria is.
Well, that's why Trump courts doctors who will tell the people what he wants them to tell them.
Okay, so you recognize that. You recognize that that's happening. Why is it so impossible for everyone else to believe that maybe someone has a vested interest in deceiving you when it comes to your knowledge of your health or the health of the general public? Ugh, it just makes me so mad.
First of all, don't paint with a broad brush. There are hundreds of millions of people. There's over 330 million people in the United States. I'd say 200 million of them are more than willing to listen to sound medical professional advice.
Really? 200 million
Well,
out of 300?
Yeah,
You
Nick,
think so?
here's part of the problem, too, is that we live in a particularly uneducated, red state.
Yeah, when I say everyone, I mean everyone around me. Not everyone in existence, just everyone around me. That's all.
You got to remember that we are the Texas of the Midwest.
Just everyone I see in my day-to-day life. That's all. Not everyone on planet Earth, but everyone here. That's for sure.
But I'll point out, too, that if you've been able to support Trump up until the point of coronavirus, knowing how often he lies, but not believing that he lies, because if you actually believe him, and if you're actually brainwashed by all the bullshit he's been spewing, then you do believe that the other people, the left agenda, is the one who is lying. So while we say, yeah, it's obvious what the truth is, they also believe, yeah, it's obvious what the truth is.
Dude, that's no joke.
I don't think it is obvious what the truth.
I got on my Facebook the other day for unrelated thing. The circles the Trump supporters on my Facebook are talking themselves into are fucking crazy, dude. But they think that they're being logical and...
Dude, Facebook is the Florida of social media.
But I am just as adamant. I am just as adamant in my beliefs in the fact that Trump lies. But I have all of these fact-checking things that I can dump into an argument, and they do the same thing, but it's not from reputable sources.
Right.
But then you have to have the whole reputable sources argument, and it's like, it's exhausting that you have to educate these other people.
And they won't believe you anyway because they believe their sources are good.
Well, you say it's on this, what's reputable, because the media controls what's reputable and what's not, and the media isn't reputable. So it's this
Sometimes
fucking
it's
brain
not,
drain.
though. This is what I mean by like left or right. The truth is not obvious to me. I don't believe that everyone on the left is telling me the truth. Same as I don't believe that everyone on the right is telling me the truth.
But there are institutions in place that are neutral, like Reuters.
It's Reuters.
Reuters?
Yeah.
Whatever. Like Reuters.
Says the mispronouncer of words all the time.
I know, right?
Take his word for it.
Jesus, he's so happy to get someone else.
But this
You can
time I'm
check
correct.
rumors and shit on Snopes. But
Okay, now let's put our tinfoil hats on for a second. Because it is a given to you that these are reputable sources, would it not be possible that someone on the other side with other interests may understand that you and the people like-minded with you think that these sources are reputable? So if something comes out from this source, you're going to believe it. So how much money would it take to buy these people? Just to fudge the facts a little bit? Is that out of the realm of possibility?
No, but as a society, you do have to have some faith in the journalistic process.
No, you don't.
Right?
No, you don't.
You should just take everything with a grain of salt, I think.
Here's something that you should be aware of that has changed in American society during my lifetime. Broadcast media used to have a requirement it be fair and objective and in the public interest. That used to be a government requirement of broadcast media because the thought was that broadcast media were so powerful that without some compelling, legally required public interest mandate, that it could be used for propaganda.
And wasn't it the Reagan administration that stopped that?
Abolished it.
The Reagan administration started by eliminating what was known as the Fairness Doctrine, and then the Clinton administration continued in the deregulation of broadcast media. Now, by the time we get to social media, which are 1,000 times more powerful from an information operations perspective than broadcast media, there is no regulation of these information operation warfare weapons at all. And so as a result, I agree with you, Nicholas, it's almost impossible to tell what's true and what's not true. And that is the fundamental problem that we face, not just as a nation, but around the world right now, is an inability to determine what is fundamentally ground truth. If you can't determine ground truth, how can you possibly come to a solution on anything?
Oh my God, what if I'm not real?
Right. You know, maybe this age of over-information, the inability to establish a ground truth, is it out of the realm of possibility that that was manufactured from an outside source to weaken and divide the people? Look, let me tell you what the real problem is. The real fucking issue is the wealth gap, the wealth disparity. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So what wealthy people do is convince poor people, and by poor people, I mean anyone under $10 million in their bank account right fucking now, that other poor people are the problem. They try to convince white people that black people are the problem and vice versa. These are manufactured problems to make you keep your eyes off what the real issue is, which is that there are people with ungodly amounts of resources and wealth you don't need.
Let me jump in because I saw on Reddit an infographic showing the wealth of the top 400 individuals in the United States. This is the
I
top
saw that as well.
400 people in the United States are worth $3.5 trillion. Now,
Bring back the Rockefeller tax.
I'm just saying this, that it is fundamentally unfair when Elsie and I paid, let's just say for the sake of argument, approximately $30,000 in taxes last year. And the President of the United States in the last year and only year we have any information about his tax payment, he paid $750. So you tell me that there is not a fundamental crisis of fairness in America, and I'll tell you that's why we are falling apart as a country.
I thought we weren't falling apart. What happened? I thought there was hope.
Well, there's hope because we're talking about it, and we have freedom of speech, and we can discuss it, and we can bring these
For
issues
now.
to light, and we can continue to insist that we change the process and the system to enhance equity, to enhance fairness, to make America the shining city on the hill that I always say that it can be.
To continue to insist. Hey, let's get around and insist. If we insist enough, maybe everything will change. Could there possibly be a more toothless solution here?
It is democracy. And in democracy, what you've got most and first and foremost is your voice.
Well, actually, what it is it's an illusion of democracy. But more to your point, Dad, when people say things like, let's tax the rich, people who make like $300,000 a year,
Eat the rich.
people who make $500,000 a year think that they're the ones who are going to get hurt. Middle or upper class Americans are the ones who think that there's the one whose money is going to be funny when you tax the rich. No. I saw this infographic detailing visually how much money Jeff Bezos has. He could pay for the chemotherapy of everyone in America, and it would be a drop in the bucket. He made enough money during 2020 to cover the chemotherapy costs of every person in America. If you took $20 million out of Jeff Bezos' account, it would be like taking a nickel out of my car. I would never notice. I would never even know.
If you actually clean Jeff Bezos' car, you're likely to find a $20 million bill in his car seat.
Quite.
He shoved it in between the seatbelt thing and the console, and then his hands were too big to get in there, and he's like, fuck it.
Yeah, you know who's on the $20 million bill?
Jeff Bezos.
I was going to say Ronald Reagan, but I think you might be right.
How about Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, huh?
How about it?
What the fucking lottery?
Well-
She just sucked the right dick, and now she's got a few $1 billion.
How do I get in on that? Now that I know I'm just used for my gardening anyway, I need to find some rich dick.
You need to use your gardening to attract a billionaire. And
You need your parents to invest
nature take its course.
$300,000 in a bookshop and then go from there.
Yes, and then I can ask everyone to support my bookshop as though I'm some actual poor fuck.
dope.
Just so everyone knows, Sarah and I were making fun of the bookstore The Strand, which is one of the most famous bookstores in the fucking world, does just fine, owned by a multimillionaire, and yet they're like, oh, help us, we might have to close. Mwah.
We're going to have to sell our 35-foot yacht and get a 28-foot boat like a plebeian.
Yeah, I mean, sure, we could close the store and just sell the property for $10 billion or something, but who fucking cares? Buy
Because
my
it's
books.
in New York City, right?
Yeah.
They could just sell that land for ungodly amounts of money.
I've met the owner of the Strand. Nice lady.
Great,
I'm
but
sure she
also fuck
was.
her.
You'd still fuck her?
No, I
Well,
said
yes,
great, but
also-
fuck her. I mean, sure, yeah.
I found her mildly
How much money am I
attractive.
getting out of it, you know?
Or I could suck her husband's dick because I need that billionaire dick money, right?
I've
And then
met-
you get used to the old blackmail trick.
Actually, I met her
The old
husband. You-
blackmaileroo.
I also met her husband. You don't want to be sucking that dick. That's all I'm saying.
Well, if the price is right,
Why, did
I'd
you
suck an
already
old
try?
dick for $1 billion. I would. Let me just go on record and say that I would suck a dick for $1 billion.
That's fair.
Billion's awful high. Sucking dick isn't hard.
Sounds like your dad did it for free and didn't like it.
Or less if it's an MMA athlete in a bathroom.
That's
well,
true.
yeah, if it's a you're getting cornered type scenario and there's only one way out of this without an orbital socket being collapsed, then
I value my eyeballs.
yeah, then just give me a bottle of water and let's get going. But if money's on the line,
All right. Well, hey, you kids got anything going on this week? Obviously, you're not doing Grandma's Halloween spectacular. You're not going.
thank fucking God. Mom, if you're listening to this, listen, it's not like I didn't want to spend time with you guys. It's just I don't want to kill people. That's all. Just don't want to be responsible for the deaths of my loved ones. Someone's got to believe in this disease. Someone's got to be responsible about this.
Good for you, son. And then you're obviously not going haunted housing. We're not doing any of that either. All we're doing this week is we're going to be thinking haunted thoughts.
Haunted thoughts.
Aren't we living in enough of a hellscape? I don't need my fake thrills when the real world is thrilling enough this year.
Legitimately, at my place of employment, there was an email that went out offering tickets for people to go to the White House Halloween party this last weekend. And I just thought there really is legitimately no scarier place I could think of to go right now than the White
Dear
House.
future zombies.
Well, I hope you do have a great Halloween. It was great to talk to you, and I love you. Bye.
Love you, bye.
Love you, bye.
Bye.
A Shin Show is a production of Shinfluence. It features the voices and opinions of the Shin family, which are entirely and exclusively their own. Join us each week on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks as always to our regular listeners. We love to hear from you, so if you have a question, comment, recommendation, or idea you would like to submit to a Shin Show, please email us at ashinshow@gmail.com, and we will be happy to ignore it, belittle you publicly, or steal your ideas if you actually have a good one.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.